Welcome back to the Men of Valor Podcast. This is Randal, your host today. It's been a while. I have been extremely busy. Life has been crazy, and so I haven't been able to join the other executives on the podcast, and for that I apologize, but I'm excited for today. Excited for this topic as we continue to talk about the family dynamic and relationships. Hope you have been listening to previous week's podcast and following along there. And today, me and my special guest, who I'm not going to introduce now, but I will here in just a little bit, so I'm going to keep you thinking, are going to talk about the topic of raising children and communication with kids. And so I hope you are looking forward to this episode. Stay tuned for some announcements at the end. And I'm excited for this topic, and hope you are too.
This is the Men of Valor Podcast. We exist to help men grow as disciples of Jesus.
Welcome to Season 2. We're glad you're here.
Let me tell you, I once was a sinner, but I am no longer a sinner. I am a saint. I am a son of the living God Most High.
Go home, embrace your wife with no expectations, and tell her that you love her. And ask her, how can I lead you? Tell me what you need. Be transparent, be open, be honest.
But if we arm ourselves and we never use what we have, that's useless.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. Here are your hosts, Travis Watson, Eric Stewart, Jordan Loggins, and Randal Ballew. Let's get after it.
Welcome back to the Men of Valor Podcast. Looking forward to this episode as we continue the conversation on relationships. And it is just me, the only executive on the call, on the screen right now, on recording, and also in your ears. But I have a special guest. This is, as far as my knowledge, has never been done on the podcast before. And leave it to me to just kind of break the mold and start new territory. And so I do have to say, before I introduce this guest, I have been in a beef and just a constant state of just irritation at this person for the past year because they feel like it is funny to make fun of my intro and outro voice on the podcast. This person has listened to almost every episode, and they like to make fun of me a lot. And so when I introduce this person, I expect a very detailed and thoughtful apology for making fun of me, but I doubt it comes. And so without further ado, Men of Valor Podcast, I would like to introduce to you my bride, Miss Lauren Ballew. Lauren, I know this is out of your element and you are extremely uncomfortable right now, but introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. Tell us how I suckered you into this podcast, and then please begin your thoughtful apology with sincerity and gentleness and kindness of your heart. So Lauren, who are you?
Hello guys. I'm Lauren. I'm Randal's wife, and I don't know how he got me suckered into this because I will 99.9% chance not listen to this because I don't even like to hear my own voice in voicemails or anything. So, yeah, but I don't know how I got suckered into this, but here I am, and it's 8:29, so technically it's midnight. And so y'all are very lucky that we're here because I'm really tired because I'm really old.
I don't hear an apology, but
no, there's no apology.
Would you like to tell everybody what it is that you made fun of me for the past 12 months?
Yes, guys, like I listened to the podcast the first time, and I heard, what was it? The first part of it?
It's the intro clip.
The intro clip. Men of Valor. I I said, Randall, you do not talk like this. I just couldn't.
This is what I've been putting up with, trying to do the Lord's work and being made fun of because I deepened my voice for the intro clip.
You deepened it like 12 whatevers.
Yeah.
Like it's not no one talks like that.
All right, that's enough. That's enough. All right. Hey, so without further ado, we're gonna get started. The reason that I have asked Lauren to join me on this podcast is because of the topic, and I'm just gonna be completely honest with you. I have learned so much from her on this, but Lauren, I think you would agree in this topic, neither one of us really know what we're doing. We're just trusting God daily and doing the best we can and using what resources that we have and our own upbringings and what we've learned and things that we want to imitate, and then things that, we don't want to be a part of us raising our children. We both have had interesting upbringings, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But today's topic is raising children and communication with kids. And we'll explain a little bit further on, but just to give you an idea, we will be married 12 years next month. And we have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, 2 boys. I couldn't imagine having a daughter. We have a girl dog, and she is enough daughter for me. Mm-hmm. But this topic of raising children and communication with kids, Lauren, I want to just begin by maybe briefly telling about our own childhoods, what our families were like growing up. What did your house consist of? Did you have mom and dad? Was it a blended family? Did you have siblings? Just kind of tell us, and I'll let you go first. Tell us kind of about your childhood. What was your home like? What was your home made up of?
Yeah. So, first off, I have really, really an amazing family and parents, but my parents divorced when I was probably 2 or 3. I don't remember. And, we moved, and then later on my mom found this really amazing guy, Dwight, and he has raised me like his own. I've never been his stepdaughter. He has never ever called me that, and I am his daughter, and I have appreciated that from the very beginning. And he has raised me. I mean, he's never been like, okay, Bethany, you take the reins, and I'll just, if you want me to step in, that's fine. They've always been a team on it. And so I have always had really good examples growing up on how I've always wanted to raise my family, because they've always just been really good at raising me and my brother. And so I have a brother. He is 8 years younger than me. And I didn't start liking him until I got married. Now we're like best friends. And my dad, he's he's a really great guy too. And I'm just a lucky girl to get to be loved by 2 dads and 2 big families. And it's just, I've been really blessed to get to be raised in the family that I have been.
Yeah.
And I've been raised in church my whole life. Every time the doors were open, that's where we were at. Just the most godliest family you can think of. And I'm just absolutely, just so thankful.
Yeah. And it couldn't be more opposite in my family. I love my family. I'm not as close to my family, not even remotely as close to my family as Lauren is to hers. And my upbringing was very different. Although divorce was involved in both of our families. Her family has a better, I don't want to say relationship with divorce, but they handled a terrible situation a lot better than my family did. I've got 5 siblings. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes.
A bunch.
Yes, I have 5 siblings. I forgot. And none of me and my siblings have the same mom and dad. And so my childhood was pretty crazy. I lived with my mother and went and visited my dad on the weekends. And my mother did the best that she possibly could in raising me and my brothers and my sister. She's a very, very good woman. She's got a heart of gold. And she's just had a very rough life. Just to give you an example, my mom ended up in Arkansas because her and a friend jumped on a train and rode it to wherever they could, and they rode it to Arkansas, and that's where they stopped. And so mom's been through some stuff. But I didn't have a family that sat around the table and went to church together. We didn't have a family that prayed together. I didn't have a family where mom and dad got along. They hated each other for the longest time. And so, my childhood was pretty challenging. There's a lot of different men in and out of the home. There's a lot of violence. I experienced some drug use and different things like that. Just kind of witnessing that as a child and seeing things that, will stick with me forever. I love my brothers. We're all different. I love my sister. And I'm thankful for the life that my mother tried to give us and what she did. She did her best. But in comparison to Lauren's family, very, very different. And so it was mom, my two little brothers, my sister, my older sister, and a different guy each and every week. We moved. Lauren moved a lot too, but she moved a lot with her family
in the same town.
And
Just different streets.
That's right. And we moved a lot too, but it was always to move in with a different guy that my mom was dating at the time. And we've been through some rough times. We went through a pretty intense state of poverty. Things were really, really rough. And so we say all that just to kind of give you a background. All we know about raising children and communicating with our kids is what we know from our own personal experiences. Lauren is probably going to be able to share with you a lot of things that she learned that work really well as a child. And I'm probably going to be able to share with you the opposite of that and things that don't work really well. Violence was pretty prevalent in my house. Lauren, I'm assuming violence was avoided at all costs in your home.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. And so we handle conflict different. And I'm thankful for that, although I wish things could have been a little easier. I'm thankful for that because I feel like it's made us better parents as we can complement one another. And so moving on, Lauren, we're both going to get a chance to do this. I want to talk about our kids. I know we could do this all day long. If there's anything in our marriage that I feel like we have figured out, listen, we suck at a lot of things. I'm just going to be honest with you. We try. And I love this woman, and I'm confident that she loves me. But we're not going to sit here and act like.
But we get on each other's nerves.
Oh,
so
yeah.
there's that.
Okay. No, we're not going to sit here and act like we're a magazine marriage, because we're definitely not. We have trials and we have struggles, but she's been with me and she's staying with me and she trusts me and I trust her. And we're in this for the long haul, even through the hard times, even through the moments of challenges. But one thing that I feel like, Lauren, and you can correct me here if I'm wrong, but one thing that I feel like you and I have always done well and we've always agreed on is how we want to raise our kids. And not saying that we have perfected it or we've always done the right thing, but I feel like if you laid out the majority of our disagreements over the course of our marriage, raising our children is probably not on that list.
No, I don't think we've ever had a disagreement on punishment. We've always been on the same track of that. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, me too. And we could talk about our kids all day long. And I want to just take a minute. Let's tell about them. And so, Lauren, I want you to just maybe in a couple sentences, tell everybody about our kids. Who are they? What are their interests? What are they like? Are they more like me or you? What are some of their similarities? What are some of their differences? Tell us about the boys.
Okay. So Caleb is our oldest. He is 10. He'll be 11 in February. And he is, the firstborn. He is more play by the books, very studious. He is makes excellent grades, doesn't like to get in trouble. Like, he's just your number one kid. And then there's the second one, Cooper. He's 6, he'll be 7 in January. And he was more our crazy kid. We thought that we knew what we were doing with Caleb when we were, just one kid. And we were like, oh, we've got this parenting thing down. And then here comes Cooper. And then we were like, oh, wow, okay, we have no idea what we're doing. But he has really grown up, and he is just the sweetest. He's a mama's boy. He likes soccer. I mean, he's sensitive, just completely opposite of what he was when he was younger.
Yeah.
And Caleb, he's our sports. He loves his sports. He learns by watching YouTube constantly. Whatever he's not good at, he's gonna learn and be better. He is just like his dad. I think they're both just like their dad when it comes to sports and smartness and all that. But they have their mama's heart. They're sweet. All the good things they got from their mama, because they love their mama.
Yeah.
But no, we really have really good kids.
We do.
And they've grown up with us, basically. I mean,
well, and I mean, just to be honest with you guys, I mean, we were kids when we had kids.
yes.
We were married for 6 months and found out that we were pregnant with Caleb. I say she was pregnant. I didn't.
Mhm.
Anyways, 6 months and found out that we were having Caleb. And then, the next 2 years later, a year and a half later, we have kids. I mean, we're parents. And so, we're 21 years old with a child. And so our lives changed. But, Caleb is your methodical kid. He's going to be the one that's going to think everything through. There's always something on his mind. He's always thinking about something, and sometimes it's good things, sometimes it's challenging things, but he's always trying to figure something out. Like, he's always just trying to figure something. And Cooper is probably more creative. He just likes to create things. He's told us since day one he wants to be a builder. He just likes to create things and build things and make things. And Caleb is more, I want to know how these things work. And Cooper is more, I want to build these things. And so our boys they're good kids. They are a lot alike. They're very competitive, and they get that from me. Their mother
They're not their mother.
is not
I'm
competitive. But one thing that, Lauren, I think they do get from you is they care for the lowly. They are very sure and quick to make sure nobody gets left out, and that's a very special quality to have in your kids. But I think they get that from you. I grew up in you survival of the fittest mentality, and I think it's healthy to have that kind of a balance of you gotta get to work and go get what you want, but at the same time you've got to look out for those who may not have the same things, and encourage and include everyone. So
well, I grew up with teachers all in my family, and so since day one, my mom would always come home and talk about some things that would happen in classrooms or whatever. And so I've always been what's the word, she's always taught me how to look for the ones that don't have the friends, who are lonely and sitting by themselves in the cafeteria or whatever. And you need to go focus on those, because you doing that will make their whole day, their whole week, everything. And so I've always been taught that, and I've always done that. And I'm so thankful that our kids are just like that. And they just have just the sweetest heart, and they're just, I don't know.
Yeah, they're sweet kids.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to pause for a second and say this, a disclaimer. Obviously, we're biased because they're our children. But for just a brief second, I do want to make sure you all know that, of course, we're going to be transparent and honest. they can be bad too.
Oh, yeah.
They can be hateful and they can be crazy
Little punks.
and they can be punks and they
Just
can
like their daddy.
Hey now,
That's
okay.
what their daddy goes
Okay.
in.
They can get mean and they've got, bless their heart, they've got their nanny's eye roll.
Oh, yeah.
And so they can be little hell raisers sometimes, but for the most part, they're pretty good kids. We had, an instance this week where Caleb, who never gets in trouble at school, was written up and got in trouble. And so we've been navigating that. We'll talk about some discipline stuff here in a minute, but we just want to throw that disclaimer out there. They're good kids, but like every other kid, they get in a lot of trouble. So now that you know a little bit about us, a little bit about our kids, Lauren, I kind of want to begin this conversation. And this is a tough question. I want to say this too. We have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. And so if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I don't really know what these two are going to offer me when I've got an 18-year-old. Well, fortunately for me, my job is teenagers and I've been around them my whole life. And that's what God's called me to do. And so, and Lauren's right there with me in that, serving too. And so we are around teenagers. We see teenagers and what they're dealing with. And, even more so me than Lauren, but I'm counseling teenagers, I'm counseling parents. And I'm not saying that I have it all figured out, but I get kind of a free look into some of these struggles, and I get to see it from both sides. And Lauren kind of sees that too from a female perspective, and so it's really helpful. So continuing on, the question, Lauren, I want to start with is, we've got young kids, and I would consider Caleb a preteen. So what would you consider would be your greatest challenge as a parent? What is your greatest challenge being their parent?
Well, I think we've never done this before, like these ages before. Like we've never had an 11-year-old. We've never had. And so like we're learning with them and learning how to parent. And I'm thankful for the second one because I feel like what we fail with Caleb, we can learn and try and do better with Cooper. But seeing as we were young when having them, we didn't, we were growing up with them, and just the world these days is pushing them to be more grown. And so I think with this teenage years, it's scary because the phones now, I mean, it's social media, and then these kids are kind of, mean sometimes. And so trying to navigate. Yeah, that's the word. Just how to deal with the struggles that they're going to be having and trying to, help them get through it. And I don't know. And sometimes these attitudes, oh my gosh, I don't know how to deal with it, because then the sassiness in me wants to just clap back. And I don't know how to deal with that because I have an attitude myself. And, being the parent, you have to realize, okay, well, you can't be the teenager with the attitude. You have to like be a grown up and parent them. And that's really hard, because then when you lay in bed that night, you're like going through how you parented at that moment when you're frustrated. And then you're like, man, I wish I would have done this different. And then, you'll think about whenever it happens again, how you're going to, parent better. But then when it happens again, you're right back to square one because you're frustrated, and so like, that's what I'm having to deal with right now, is just trying to, parent that, because, we bang heads.
Well, we do. And there's a lot of power struggle sometimes, especially with our 10-year-old. And, there's no question in our home as to authority. Like, they know that mom and dad are, the boss. But even then they are very testy sometimes. And I think for me, the biggest struggle is knowing when to show grace and knowing when you need to kind of bring the hammer down.
Well, and also, I feel like we're really good at that. Like when I'm hot-headed, I feel like you're more calm. And then when you're hot-headed, I'm more calm. And so like we really balance each other out with that. When I don't know, I just feel like I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, and I think that's a good challenge for couples who are parenting kids of all ages, even those of you who have adult children. Um, Knowing that, it's okay to have those emotions and be frustrated, but at least one of you has to be grounded at all times. There are going to be times where my kids do something that just make me so freaking mad, and I just want to lose my mind. If she's mad too, then we're going to act out in sin and do something that's going to hurt our kids. But that's also where you have to, communicating with your kids, you have to communicate with one another. Lauren called me off a ledge yesterday, I think it was. I was ready to, I mean, man, when I got that text message from the teacher, I was ready to throw down, like, dude was just gonna get it when I got home.
Well,
And
we both were, but then like throughout the day, which I'm sure you were thinking that too, because
I was ready to throw down.
well, I just got to thinking, I just feel like with this age, and this is us being just vulnerable because we really don't know what we're doing.
That's right.
90% of the time. And I just, I got to thinking, I just feel like most of the times it just seems like we're getting on to him. And I'm saying us to him as being Caleb, because we haven't really gone through this phase with Cooper. And so like we're just really focused, like it's just this age right now is just really hard on Caleb. And I never want him to feel like all mom and dad ever do is yell at us me. I never want him to go to bed thinking, do they even love me? Like I never want that to happen. And so, I called Randall. I was like, listen, let's just let him talk. And then let's just kind of be a little bit, let's give him grace, because he has never like had her written up, like, and so I don't know. It's just really,
Well, I think it is you if you're consistent with something, I mean, you're almost kind of proving how you are through how you consistently respond. And, unfortunately, he gets under my skin sometimes, and I'm real quick to get angry and discipline. And she makes a great point. Like, if you are consistently just that authoritative, disciplinary person, and you neglect that side of, hey, I need to be a loving, gentle father, then you're going to build, there's going to be resentment built. And we definitely don't want that. And so in like communicating with our kids, I need to be able to communicate to him, one, I'm disappointed in what you did. I'm disappointed in how you acted, but I always need to follow that up with, but I love you no matter what.
yeah.
Now, we're not going to act like that, but I love you no matter what. And I think that's a lesson that a lot of guys that I talk to, that they do that okay while their kids are younger, but as their kids get older, they neglect that. And they get frustrated with their adult kids because they're not doing things that they want them to do. But we've got to have that balance, because if you're consistently communicating to your kids that, you're a screw up, you're not doing the right thing, they're going to begin to believe that. And man, what a terrible, terrible thing to, breed into our children, and talking about the greatest challenges with the kids. For me, Lauren, I think another thing is I don't do well with emotions. Cooper, we went to this petting zoo farm thing a few weeks ago, and the boys kind of liked it at first, but then they wanted to be turds here and there on a few things, and we finally had a moment where it's like, okay, this is turned good. We're having a good time. We're petting these bunny rabbits and whatever, and it's fun. And then, of course, our luck, one of them, bit Cooper on the finger, and then blood just gushing out, and it was just a mess. And so, in my mind, I'm like, hey, dry it up. Hey, suck it up, dry it up. We'll get a Band-Aid. Quit screaming. You're embarrassing us. And reality is, he just got bit, and his finger hurts, and he's embarrassed, and he's sad. Maybe I need to learn how to navigate that emotion a little bit better. The challenges of being a guy is I want to I want my kids to do right. I want them to, be correct in public and appropriate, and not act like fools or run around the restaurant and be dumb. Or I don't like when they start crying and get upset. My go-to is, hey, get over it, because that's how I was raised. Some extent, I think Lauren was raised like that, but I think she had a little bit more grace shown to her growing up, and a healthy balance between her mom and Dwight, and her mom and her dad, and her mom and her grandparents. And so I think that kind of continues on this conversation with the next question. We talked about this a little earlier as we were prepping for this podcast, but I think one way that we really have to focus on how we communicate with our kids is how we are encouraging our kids. Lauren and I kind of do this in similar but different ways. How do we encourage our kids? And Lauren, I'll start with Caleb. He is not the kid that you can like pump up by getting loud, by cheering him on. Like, he is not the kid that you can grab him by the face mask and he'll run through a brick wall for you. That's how I'm wired. I mean, you come at me, you scream at me, and I'll, jump off a bridge for you. Like, I'm just, maybe I'm weird. I don't know.
You are.
But he is not that person. And I coach his soccer team, and I can't get loud with him. I have to encourage him in a unique way to where he knows that I love him and that I'm trying to encourage and coach him up. And so encouraging your kids is very, very important in this communication process. And the trick is you have to get to know how your kid needs to be encouraged. Same thing with communication. Know how they need to be communicated to. I think a lot of men, if they were open and honest, would admit that their fathers did a poor job at encouraging them and communicating with them, maybe because they weren't vulnerable with their children. I don't want to be like that. And so, Lauren, talking about Caleb and Cooper, how do we try to encourage them no matter what they do, whether they do something great and it's a milestone achievement, or maybe they make a mistake? I feel like we are fair with our expectations. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, my encouragements are a little different than yours, just because I think as a mom, it's just, it's just the little things, whereas you're more the coach, type thing. And our kids are definitely not the yell in your face. Like, they're just sensitive, And so I think I start, I make their lunches, and just the little things of, I'm going to write you a note. And when they open their lunchbox, it's, hey, I hope you have a great day. I love you, Mom. And I didn't realize until a month or two ago, I didn't even know that they liked it. Honestly, I was just doing it because I just wanted to be a good mom, and I didn't realize until Cooper told me, Mom, I save every one of your notes, and I copy what you write, and I draw, and I love them, and I save them all. And I was like, wow, I did not realize just that little bit of, just a little bit of a encouraging note, like, meant that much to them. And I did that with Caleb, and he loves it too. And I'm thankful that they told me that, because I almost quit, because I was like, I bet they don't even read it, and then, but it's that little bit of, hey, I'm going to get a note from my mom. And like, that makes me happy that they like that. And just little things of laying in their bed at night before bed, and not having the phone in your hand and actually listening. I do a really poor job at that. And that's one thing whenever I lay in bed at night and I think about through the day, I'm just like, why did I have my phone in my hand 90% of the time when they were home, when I should have been playing games with them? I should have been doing other things, and I didn't. I had my phone, my face in my phone. And but those moments that I didn't, those moments, like, I know that our kids knew that I heard them.
Yeah.
And I've got to do better at that, because I'm really bad at that. And I know how important it is, like, when someone is talking to you and you know that you have their full attention.
That's good.
And so, just even, I know that's not really encouragement, but it's just knowing that, hey, like I'm listening and I'm here. And
No, I think it is. I think our actions sometimes speak louder than our words in that. And if we are halfway encouraging our boys, but our heart is not fully in it, or we're distracted, or we're doing it in a way where it's like, hey, I'm gonna give you only half of my attention, then basically, I mean, and this is my opinion, but I feel like we're telling them, hey,
yeah,
you're not worth all of my time. And in a way, that action is communicating to them, I don't really care if you're encouraged by this. I'm just saying this because it's what I'm supposed to do, kind of thing. And that's very convicting because you're not alone in that struggle. I mean, I'm probably even worse than you when it comes to that. But it's one of those things that our actions our actions speak louder than our words sometimes. And you I love what you said. We truly encourage our children when we give them our full undivided attention. I mean, I think about it sometimes sitting at Caleb's basketball practice, and I'm sitting there watching his practice, and every time he takes a shot, what's he do? He looks up in the stands. And sometimes I'm talking to other dads, or sometimes I'm playing on my phone, and I can't tell you how many times he's probably looked up and not seen me. And what a discouragement that the person who should be his biggest fan isn't even paying attention. Now, I get it. We're not perfect. But that's
but that's little bitty things that just shows that, hey, we love you, and we really do have to get better. And that's one thing whenever I think back to my childhood is phones weren't big then, I mean, we had like a flip phone, but you weren't glued to it. And like just the conversations that we would have as a family, we would actually sit down as a family at the dinner table, talk about our day, not be distracted by everyday life things. That's, I mean, and I don't know, it's just.
No, you're right. The distractions get in the way. And so, Lauren, when we talk about encouraging the boys, I want to talk about maybe a little bit about expectations. I feel like we do a pretty good job at this, and you correct me on any of this, but we don't place expectations on our kids that they have to be the best. We don't place expectations that they have to be perfect. Now with Caleb, he is a straight A student, and we kind of eased off on him maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and he started bringing home a couple B's. And when he was questioned about it, his response was, well, you said I don't have to make straight A's, or is this not my best? And so we have to hold him extra accountable when it comes to those things, because we know what he's capable of. Now, that said, if the kid brings home a B and he gave 110% of his effort, neither one of us are going to say a word. And it's one of those things. The same thing with sports is both of the boys love playing sports. And, if they go out there and score 5 goals a game, we're going to celebrate. If they go out there and they don't score any goals a game, I'm not that dad. And even though some of you may think I am, and Lauren probably thought that I was, and I'm not, and I can say this, and I'm confident that she's going to defend me, I am not that dad that's going to get in the car and chew my kid out because he was not good enough. Now, I will jump his butt for lack of effort. But I don't know if I've ever just like ripped into them because they didn't score all the goals, or they didn't have a perfect game. That's just not how we are. That's just not expectations we set. Lauren, why is it important for us to set realistic expectations? We want to hold them accountable. We want them to do well, but we're not expecting perfection.
Right. Yeah, like, so I always, I was never, thankfully the boys have their dad's ability of sports and school and everything. And when I was in school, I should have been on ADD medicine. And, so my mom, they didn't really set high expectations because like I tried my best. Well, not really, but I passed. And, and so like seeing our kids like excel the way they do, it just caused, I mean, what am I saying? It's really like, y'all, it's like midnight. I can't even think
It's
anymore.
9 o'clock.
It's 9 o'clock.
I think what she's trying to say is, watching them excel, it's difficult sometimes because they're doing better than we could ever ask for and imagine.
Yes.
And so we don't want to be overly, we don't want to just be so hard and strict parents of, you've got to make this grade, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And then them grow to like resent school or
Right.
resent sports or anything like that.
They know that we're proud of them no matter
Yes.
what. Like, no matter if they've tried their absolute hardest, we're going to be happy and we're going to celebrate them.
Yes.
And
But we are going to challenge them to keep getting better. Like we don't want them to just quit or, halfway try. And that's one of my things is really my expectation for my boys is it's okay if you're not the best. It's okay if you're not perfect. It's okay if you don't get everything right. I just want you to try hard in whatever you do.
right.
And I want you to have a good time. So continuing the conversation, one thing that we kind of hit on earlier, and this is something that Lauren and I feel like we've had very, very few disagreements on. We want to talk about discipline in the home. When raising your children, how do you communicate to your kids, hey, you've messed up. This is not acceptable. Here's the status quo. I need you to meet that. And how do you navigate those challenges when our kids mess up? Discipline for me growing up was a leather belt and pretty intense, violent punishment. Lauren, you had a lot of things taken away.
Yeah.
I think at one point, my
I
father,
think I had like a pillow.
yeah, he took your pillow
and
away.
a blanket.
I'm pretty sure that's child abuse, but hey, we're,
Like, I had high expectations.
statute of limitation.
Yeah.
So thinking about discipline, Lauren, why is it that you and I do well on this? Why are we on the same page when it comes to correcting behavior and what's important to remember when disciplining your child? Like why is discipline important?
Well, because I mean, it really molds you into who you're going to be. Like I said, when I was younger, my parents expected high of me, and it didn't help that my mom was a teacher. And so like, it didn't matter if I did something 5 seconds ago, she's going to know about it. And so we had a high bar. And I know like with boys and stuff, like there was high, like there was no in between. I mean, or clothing or anything. And so it annoyed me so bad at that time. But now that I'm grown, I'm so appreciative that they were hard on me and that they disciplined me the way I did, because there's no telling what I would be like if they didn't do that. And I'm thankful that, I had that example, and I'm thankful that you, even though your background wasn't like mine, you've had godly men that, helped you out and understood. And I think in being a youth pastor, you see, you see kind of the future of like what our kids will be, because you deal with that all the time. And so you kind of see what the ins and outs of how these parents should discipline their kids. And,
Hey, listen, man, some kids just need a whooping.
oh
Like,
gosh,
I know
yeah.
that sounds terrible, and that may get us kicked off of Spotify for saying that, but I mean, here's the thing: like discipline is biblical. Like, spare the
Yeah.
rod, right? Now, what's also biblical is fathers not provoking their children to anger. And so if you've got to figure out how to do both of those at the same time. But here's the
But
thing.
it's always a follow-up with "I love you."
Absolutely.
Like, that's the thing that, I mean, my last, like every whooping I know, like Dwight would be like, come here, and he would explain, he'd say, now I love you. And let me tell you, I hit the ground because I knew a spanking was coming, but he would always follow it up with, I love you.
Yes.
And I'm doing this because I love you. And I want what's best for you, because I
Yes.
know the route that you're going is not your best.
And we're not saying punish your kid for doing wrong and then take them out to get ice cream. You're not rewarding bad behavior.
No.
But what you're doing is you have to discipline in a way where they still know that you care for them. And I think about a shepherd and his sheep. The sheep gets out, you're going to hook its neck and you're going to yank it back into the corral or back into the fence. And it may be a little painful and a little violent. But you're doing it because you know that you can protect it and you know that the boundaries are safe. And so the same thing with our boys is when our kids mess up, I don't ever just want to lose my cool and blow up and discipline and be that enforcer without an explanation. Guys, I'll tell you, if you're listening to this, and I hope you hear my heart, you may disagree with this, but I will challenge you and tell you that I think you're wrong. Your children deserve an explanation for why you're disciplining them.
Mm-hmm.
If you cannot give your children an explanation for why you had to give them a whooping, that's child abuse, and it's unacceptable. They deserve an explanation. They need to know why they're getting in trouble. That is not a healthy environment for your kids to just live in constant fear and live in constant trouble. And you think about correcting behavior. We hear the phrase all the time, it's soul transformation, not behavior modification. And I agree with that 110%. But when you're molding a young child and you're molding even a preteen and a teenager, sometimes you have to correct the behavior, because correcting the behavior is going to keep them from making mistakes that they're going to greatly regret. I didn't have rules growing up. My whole life, I just kind of did what I wanted. And then I got to play football in junior high and high school. And I couldn't tell you how many bleachers, we talked about this earlier today. I can tell you how many bleachers I had to run, how many push-ups I had to do, and all of these things, because when I acted out and I did things I shouldn't have done, coach had my butt. And I very quickly learned how to do right because I didn't want to do that crap anymore. And so we need to develop a healthy balance and a healthy understanding of punishment and why it's important, and discipline. But we never need to flirt with the lines of abuse.
No, and even if that means when you're so angry, walking away for 5 minutes until you can calm down, because you never want to do something and instantly regret it because you're so angry at the moment. Because your kids always remember,
That's true.
They will always remember how you treat them in the moment, and they will either want to be just like you when they become a parent, or they're going to want to be completely opposite of how you parent. And
they'll grow to resent you.
Yeah.
And you
because
don't,
you have them for 18 years and you have them under your roof. And then, and some kids, they're done with their parents because they didn't feel that love or anything. And I never want that.
Yeah. And you don't want to go to either extreme. You don't want to live in a home where it's so strict that there's no love, but then live in a home where it's all love and happiness, but there's no rules, because both of those are going to destine you for failure.
Right.
Because you need boundaries, but you also need grace.
Yeah.
And so, we could talk about discipline in the home. I think my encouragement for you guys would be, like we already said, find that healthy balance between showing grace, showing love, but also giving boundaries and expectations and rules, and never flirt with the lines of abuse. That's one thing that I just cannot stand. And maybe because a little bit of a byproduct of that growing up, again, I love my mom and, nothing against her. I think it made me the man that I am today, but I choose to discipline my kids far different than I was disciplined growing up. Lauren, this is a little bit of a different question, and this may be difficult to answer, but what do you hope that the boys take away from their childhood, and what do you hope they take away from how we raise them as children?
Well, I mean, that's just like kind of what I just said. They're either going to want to raise their kids just like we raised them, or they're going to want to do the complete opposite. And I hope that they see that we love them and that even though we mess up, that even when we ask for their forgiveness, and I'm just so thankful that they're.
I don't want to interrupt you there, but that's so good. I want you to talk about there for a second. And I think we've missed that. When you said that when we mess up and we ask for their forgiveness, that's a very important quality that I think Lauren and I have both tried to do that is totally against anything I've ever been taught. So talk about that real quick. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's so good.
Yeah. I think they need to know that as parents, we're learning as we're going, and we don't know what we're doing half the time. And we need to let them know that when we mess up, that, hey, we're really sorry that we did that. We shouldn't have done that. And maybe we should have done it another way.
That's good.
Can we talk about how we can handle this the next time? And I am really sorry. And will you forgive me? And every time they will look at you and they forgive you. And it's just like that. They don't hold grudges. They don't do anything. And
it's not a sign of weakness.
No,
although it may appear, what an amazing strength that you have enough humility to own your mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, they will remember that
absolutely
forever.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you a single time where my dad admitted that he did something wrong growing up. Because I promise you, had I remembered that, like, it would have been substantial.
Right.
I want my kids to know that I suck without Jesus, and I want my kids to know that I'm going to make mistakes, because I don't want there to be a mistake that I make, and the next thing you know, they're devastated. Like, we want to be real and transparent, and maybe sometimes we're too real and transparent, but I think that's a great point, Lauren, that we need them to know, hey, I'm sorry. I acted out of anger. Like you said earlier, walk away, like take a breather. And those times when you don't, sit them down and say, hey, I was mad and I disciplined you out of anger, not out of love.
Right.
And own that and share with them that you're real and that you have struggles. And listen, I know this may sound like we're trying to tell you to be softer with your kids, but that's not the case. We're not soft with our boys. We're very firm with them, but at the same time, we're willing to admit that we made mistakes, and we're willing to admit that we've never had an 11-year-old before, and so we're learning as we go. One thing that I hope that our boys take away from their childhood, and this is something that we struggle with, but I feel like Lauren and I'm doing far better than my parents did. Now, that doesn't mean I'm doing enough. I want my boys to know that their dad chose them, whatever that may be. My parents didn't coach me. My parents didn't attend all my games. When I was in high school, played college ball. My mom attended one game. Dad didn't see me play my senior year of high school, didn't see me play in college. And those things sting. They do. I want my boys to know that, hey, I'm exhausted, but I'm choosing you. I'm tired after working all day and having, counseling people and planning stuff at church and all these things, but I'm going to go coach your soccer team.
Can I tell you, you are a fantastic dad. And I know I don't tell you that enough, but you pour and pour and pour into people, and it means the world to me seeing you be a dad, because even after you are exhausted and haven't even been home, you're meeting us at the soccer fields and you're coaching them little kids when I know you'd rather be home,
Some of them little kids are bad.
Yeah, they are. And I can see the fuming coming out of your head. And you're like,
yeah, some of them little kids need some discipline.
Yeah.
They need less grace.
Yeah, but I just
well, I appreciate that.
You're very good at that. And I know our boys do see that. And I see it, and it makes me fall in love with you even more, because you're doing what I wanted in my husband, because you love our boys and you show it by showing up.
Well, and not to harp on the, I've got daddy issues train, but I'm simply doing what I wish would have been done for me at that age.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you. Yes, it's exhausting. It's really not that hard to be a decent dad. There are a lot of things that I'm not good at. but there are some things that I'm okay with not being good at. But one thing that I think I'm good at and I love is being a dad. And Lauren, same thing for you being a mom. And let's just be real. It's not that hard to be a good parent. It's really not. We act like it is, but it's because we don't get out of our own selfish ways and our selfish desires enough. So I hope that our kids take that away, that we chose them,
Right.
instead of the other things. There are a few things I want to talk about as we kind of draw towards the end here. Lauren, I want to talk about some specific things that we've dealt with our boys that maybe somebody out there is dealing with their children, maybe with their grandchildren, maybe with their adult children. One word is kind of frowned upon some circles, and people don't like this term, but I was made a believer that this was a real issue, and now seeing it in my boys, it's something that we take very serious, and that's this the concept of anxiety. We have our boys struggle. Caleb is wired with this perfectionist mindset, and read an article today. By the way, there are so many good articles out there, family stuff. If you look at Focus on the Family, man, they just have so much stuff. I read an article today on that talking about how to deal with a kid who's a perfectionist. And one of the things they talk about is crippling anxiety, and how if they're not perfect or they don't feel like they're being perfect, that they just simply fold and can't function. And we've seen that a little bit in Caleb. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but Lauren, without going into too much detail, how have we grown and navigated the challenges of Caleb and Cooper maybe dealing with some anxiousness? And specifically, I want you to talk about the separation anxiety, the separation struggles that they've had.
Yeah, well, Caleb has honestly, and Cooper some too, but Caleb has from the very beginning had separation anxiety. Actually, I had to step out with working in the youth for several long years because Caleb could not function without me. And so I had to step into the children's stuff, because I had to be there, because I know no one wanted to hear a screaming child. And
he would not
stop. He would not stop. I mean, he would not stop. And, but I understood that because I had and have anxiety and had separation anxiety, when I had to go, to my dad's for the weekend, or I had to be away from my mom. It's just, it's really hard. And someone who doesn't have anxiety doesn't quite understand that it just comes out of nowhere, and it's it's hard to cope with. And Caleb, I mean, he's had to deal with that, and it's become, really heavy lately. And I don't know if it's just because it's the, weight of the world, and then his perfectionism, and then just everything. And so, I mean, we've had to have lots of talks, and we just have to tell him, like, hey, like, it's okay. Like, it's okay to have feelings, of scared or anxiousness, or just the feeling of, I don't know what's wrong with me, but something is not right.
Yeah.
And just to know that, hey, we're here, like, and you're not alone. Like, God is always with you, and he knows your feelings. He knows your heart. Like, he's always right there with you. Even if I'm not there, he is there with you. And sometimes, people don't like medicine or whatever, but sometimes you just have to get a little bit of help, and they're like, some people are like, well, just pray. Well, yeah, pray, but sometimes you need a little bit extra help. And so that's what we've learned, that, maybe going to the doctor or talking to someone other than your parents, that's okay to do. And
it's no different than the guy who struggles with some mental health issues, and he fixes his problems with a bottle. Why is it okay to choose harmful things to cope with these issues, but it's frowned upon to seek mental health professionals? I'll tell you, with Caleb, imagine carrying some of these burdens and the woes of the world as an adult. It's difficult. Whether it's a financial strain, whether it's a health strain, whatever it is, we've all had those moments where we lay awake in bed at night because we just can't, we're scared to death. Like, what is tomorrow going to bring? Am I going to be able to do this? Is this going to add up? Am I going to make this? And it's, you're almost on the verge of just breaking down. Imagine being 10 years old
and not being able to express your feelings of
exactly.
why am I feeling like this?
And so I think you said that right, though. We try to make sure that he knows that, hey, you're not alone. Caleb is so smart, and he made a profession of faith when he was 6 years old, which was really cool. And a story that we'll get to tell another time. Lauren was able to lead him to Christ, which was so special. But just reminding him, hey man, do not be afraid. Our family verse, do not be afraid nor be dismayed. Have courage, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And that's our family verse. That's our life verse. And we want to communicate to our kids, hey, there are going to be times where you feel like you're alone, and there's going to be times where this is crippling anxiety and you feel like you can't breathe. Know that God is with you. Know that he is with you, and know that we may not be physically present, but as your parents, I mean this, there is nothing you can do that's going to separate you from my love.
Right.
And that may be hard for me to follow through on one day, depending on what life they choose to live. But I'm going to choose to love my children. And I think that's what we have to do. That's what we have to communicate. And so,
well, and also with his is he doesn't like to disappoint people.
Yes.
And I think his fear of, I'm going to disappoint someone, or I'm not going to do the best at this game or whatever, it cripples him so bad to where he just freezes. And I guess he feels like if he talks about it, then we're going to see his insides of this is going to disappoint them, you know? And so I think finally, when he breaks that wall of, I'm going to talk to my mom, I'm going to talk to my dad, you can see the weight lifting off of his shoulders of just talking about it and not holding it in. And, sometimes you just need a good cry.
Yep.
And that's okay.
Need to share that emotion.
Yeah.
Lauren, this next challenge that we face with our kids, we're going to mention this, but we're not going to talk about this because both of our boys wrestle with a temper, and they get that from their mom. Anyways, moving on. No, both of them struggle with a temper. It's something that all four of us struggle with.
Absolutely.
We're just going to be honest. And unfortunately, I think that is a quality that has been communicated to them that is okay from our behavior. And I think the reminder there is, your behavior around your children will communicate to them what is right and what is wrong.
Right.
And, again, not saying this is an excuse, but as Lauren and I were growing in marriage and learning each other, there have been too many times where I personally have lashed out in anger or in my temper, and the boys have seen that and they have developed that same trait and quality. And so now I feel like we're more proactive in fighting against that now than we've ever have been, although we're still not perfect. And so I think that's just a reminder on that. I don't really think there's much to say. I think, I will say Cooper, man, when Cooper gets mad. Y'all better just look out.
He will hurt some feelings.
Yeah, that dude, he can be. One thing I do want to hit on, Lauren, is the thought of negative self-reflection. This is something that Caleb, as a preteen, and it's crazy because you don't think that a preteen boy would be wrestling with this, but some medication, some puberty changes. He's growing a lot. He's tall. He's super strong, and all these things. But unfortunately, he's put on a little bit of weight, and it's not abnormal. He doesn't look bad or anything like that.
But the weight, you can tell, like with sports and stuff, it's slowing him down some, and
it bothers him.
And clothes, like stuff that used to fit, it doesn't fit him. And so the struggle of him looking in, I see him going in our room and looking in the mirror and trying to fix his shirt and suck in a little bit. And that makes me so sad that 10-year-olds are I mean, as a girl, like I could see that, but even as a boy, I mean, it's just,
But
it's sad. I mean, I hate that.
I do too, but it's the same thing that we struggle with. I mean, how many times, and I'm just being vulnerable here. How many times, I mean, do you try on a shirt and you're like, man, this shirt fit a year ago and
Right.
it's too tight. And then you take it off. You're like, man, I'm so fat.
And
Right.
they hear us talk and they hear us
They,
say that
yes.
about ourselves. And so that automatically is like, oh, well, am I fat?
Yes.
Do I look bad? And so it has really made us self-check of, hey, we don't need to talk bad about ourselves because our kids see that. And
Well, and you are communicating your thoughts of God's view about you
yeah,
when you put yourself down in front of your children. And because here's the thing, your children idolize you. If you're halfway doing this parenting thing, right, your children idolize you. And if you put yourself down in front of your kids, I'm not saying that you act like you're perfect, own your mistakes. But when you put yourself down, like I can't tell you how many times I've done that. And they see that, they're like, oh, well, if my dad is this, that, and that, then maybe I'm like that. And so that negative self-reflection, when you are putting yourself down and you're saying hateful things about yourself in front of your children, you're communicating to them that they are that way too, and that it's okay to doo-doo on yourself. It's okay to say hateful, mean things about yourself. But I'm gonna tell you, that's the furthest thing from scripture.
right.
We're fearfully and wonderfully made. And we're not perfect, but God wants us to speak positive things over our lives. Yes, I need to lose some weight, right? Yes, I don't like the way some of my clothes fit. I need to suck it up and keep that crap to myself because I don't need my 10-year-old or other kids hearing that and thinking to themselves, oh, well, maybe something's wrong with me. That's just not healthy. And like Lauren said, we see that in youth ministry, we see that in girls a lot. But you're seeing that more and more in boys. A parent comes home from work, they've had a long day in the office, and they walk in and the wife says, maybe dad has a long day in the office and comes in and mom says, hey, how was work today? And he goes, I just sucked at that meeting. Well, oh, maybe you did, but your kid is sitting there listening to that. Well, they took a test at school, made an okay grade. You asked them the next day, how'd you do on that test? I just sucked in that class. You see how that just kind of rolls over and it kind of becomes their own negative self-reflection. We've got to battle against that. And we've got to start speaking positive things over our kids.
Well, and even
highlight their good qualities.
Yeah, and even to other people, because you don't realize your words. Even if you're kidding or joking, that other person might be struggling with that. And whatever you say that's joking, they could take that to heart and it will do lots of damage to them.
Yeah.
And so always, speak positive, like affirmations about people, because that just might be exactly what they need to hear. Is the positivity, because all they've heard is, you can always say like 10 good things, but you hear one negative thing, that's all you hear. And so just watch your words too, because that can really affect you.
That's all right. And speak truth, speak positive things over your children. I want to talk about maybe some of the things we've learned from our own kids, even about ourselves. Something that I've learned about myself from our boys is that I am very quick to react. And I've learned that just maybe by catching their eyes. Something happens and I react immediately, and not in a good way. And I've learned just by watching their reaction to my quick reaction is, crap, my dad's a little unhinged. My dad reacts really quick to things. He gets really frustrated really easily. And these are things that I don't notice in myself because it's just kind of who I am. But then other things that I've learned from our kids, and again, this isn't to boast, but one thing I've learned is that I'm a dang good dad. and because I look at my kids and my kids adore me, and Lauren, the same thing with you. our boys love you and adore you. And I think one thing we can learn is that you're doing a good job. And I guess my challenge for you guys, you dads listening, is reevaluate maybe how you're doing some things. If your kids don't want to be around you, I don't think it's a them problem. I think it's a you problem. And that's really harsh for me to say, but I think it's true. Lauren, what are maybe a few things that you've learned about yourself from the boys?
Well, I've learned, like you said, they can catch on your attitude. Not you, like, but me, like,
Yeah.
I would, sometimes if I'm like doing the dishes or I have like not a happy face or whatever, like they catch on to that and, Mom, are you cranky? Or like if I have a short fuse or something, Mom, why are you cranky? Like, be happy. Like, and it makes me think like, oh man, like whatever I'm thinking on the inside, it shows on the outside, and they're always watching. And, and I've just learned from them that I need to have more of a kid heart, because they're so forgiving. And I want to be more like that, because my kids have taught me, so much, and, just have that childlike behavior of forgiveness and just happiness, and just, I just want to be more like that. And they do. They teach you things even when they don't know they're trying to.
That's very true. Lauren, I'm assuming there's going to be mostly dads listening to this, but I'm hoping that when they find out that you're on here, that some of these dads encourage their brides to listen. If you could offer a final challenge, maybe to the mothers, if they listen to this, raising their kids, communicating with their kids, what would be a final challenge that you could offer them?
Maybe not a challenge, but just to know that motherhood is hard, but it's rewarding. And sometimes you have to put your wants and needs away for a season, because you're a mom forever, but you're a mom for just a short period of time to where your kids need you.
Yeah.
And even if it's putting like I said, your wants aside and just being there for your kids, that's okay. And it's hard sometimes because you feel like you don't get to do what you want to do. And your time's coming. And I tell myself that a lot when I feel like I don't have a purpose or something, that I do have a purpose, and that's raising these boys. And my time will come, and that's what I'm currently dealing with right now. And it's kind of hard, but God made us moms for a reason, and we're doing a really good job. And just keep loving and just being the best you can, because they're watching.
That's good.
And they're going to marry someone that they're either going to want to be just like you, they're going to want to marry someone that's like their mom. So that's like a big goal that I want them to marry someone that they feel comfortable, that they love like their mama.
That's good. And man, that's good. And I think just a challenge, maybe one last thing for dads. It's not your wife's job to raise your kids. And watching your kids is not considered babysitting. Those are your children.
Mm-hmm.
So stop using that phrase, because it's stupid. Get to know your children. Get to know what they're dealing with. Get to know what they're going through. Speak to them. Talk to them. Spend time with them. I'll tell you this, and then this is probably how we'll wrap up this episode. But Lauren called me today, upset because Cooper got in the car. And let me back up. This morning, Let me back up. Last night, Cooper brings us a piece of paper.
Actually, like 3 days ago.
Okay. Brings us this piece of paper, and it says it has the book fair on it, and he has selected a book that he wants, a book for his brother, and then some kind of plushie toy or something. And so he's in there counting his money in his piggy bank, and he doesn't have enough, and he's upset because he doesn't have enough. And so, we have a moment where I'm like, hey, listen, you're going to act like that, then you're not getting anything. Then he comes back and he apologizes and does right and this and that. And so he's like, okay, we'll let you take your money, but this is your limit. This is all you get. He goes to school. I don't think anything about it. The school does book fairs every month, it feels like. I don't think
they make it a big deal, and I guess we forgot.
Yes. And so Lauren calls me, and apparently when she picked Cooper up, he gets in the car and he says, Mom, I had to sit by myself at lunch with the teacher while everybody and their parents went to the cafeteria.
He was the only kid that didn't have their parents with them.
Yeah.
Talk about dagger in the heart.
Dagger in the heart. And so I tell you that story to tell you this, like, you're going to mess up. You're going to mess up. And man, I felt bad. Like when I got home today, I just wanted to hold him, and I hugged him several times and try to spend time with him. And
but you know what? Hang on. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I'll forget what I'm about to say. Like I said, with the forgiving heart, the kids, that's whenever I say, Cooper, I am so sorry that me or your dad did not come. I forgot about it, honestly. And I didn't realize it was such a big deal with the parents. But just know that we try and come to everything possible. And I am really sorry that we messed up. And, he said, Mom, that's okay. He said, I know that you and Dad work and you do come to a lot of things. You come to almost everything, and that's okay.
Yep.
And he was so forgiving, and I don't know. It's just, but that was a mom and dad fail hugely.
Well, and I think what my challenge would be is know that there are going to be times where you mess up. And, the book fair with a 6-year-old is such a little thing. Some of you have grown children who you have upset, you have hurt, you've not been there for. Here's my challenge, and here's what I wish that my father would do. And then this is just me being vulnerable. Try to make it up. Try to make it up. You may not ever be able to bridge that gap. That gap may be too wide, but don't stop trying. Don't stop trying to be present. Like, yeah, man, I missed the book fair, but you know what? The next opportunity I get where I can just love on that boy, I'm going to take it. Those of you who have grown children, and there's some tension, there's some space between you, be intentional in that next moment, that next opportunity. That's how you communicate with your kids. And I think that's how we raise. You never stop raising your children.
Right.
If you do, then you're doing it wrong. And then, I've always heard that if you can get through the kid stage and then you can get grandkids, it's just smooth sailing from there, because apparently grandkids get whatever they want and there are no repercussions, and then parents are left to deal with it. So, no, seriously, love your kids, encourage them, communicate with them, get to know their struggles, and don't stop trying. Just don't stop trying. And so I think those are some good challenges there. Lauren, I have enjoyed doing this with you. This has been fun. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. I would encourage you to listen to this. Let your bride listen to this. Be ready, though, because if you take heed to some of these challenges and you apply these things, there will be some struggles that come. The enemy does not like vulnerable conversations. And so I ask that you pray for us as we continue to raise our children, and we'll pray for you in whatever phase of life you're in. Keep loving your kids, no matter how old they are, because they're always going to be your kids. And so, Lauren, thank you for joining me on this episode. And guys, I want to encourage you, if you are not a part of our band app, it is completely free. You can join the online community, stay connected with guys in the men's community. You can communicate daily. There's weekly devotionals. Be sure to pay attention for the Remind. We have Man Up Monday. We have a Zoom call and a teaching every single Monday morning at 4:30 Central Standard Time, 5:30 Eastern Time. It's a great time of fellowship. Several different guys get on there and teach, and just a good time to get your week started and started in the Word. And then we've got some content that's going to be dropping throughout the month of November and December. So be looking for that for the conference. And registration is open. And I think that we're going to be releasing our breakout session lineups and our main session speakers next month. So be looking for those details. So thankful for each of you who listen to this, and want you to know that we're praying for you. And we hope that you have a great week and that you'll join us back here on the Men of Valor podcast next week. Peace.
We hope you've enjoyed today's episode and that you will continue to join us on this journey to make disciples of men. Be sure to check out our social media outlets as well as movministries.org for any information, and be sure to join our digital men's community.
Hey guys, we wanted to let you know that Men of Valor Podcast is proud to partner and be a part of the Recovering Fundamentalist Podcast Network. You can find their podcast and many other great podcasts by going to rfpnetwork.org. We would love for you to go and check them out as well. Hey, keep fighting, win today, and as always, go light it up for the King.